Take the Leap is the podcast where we get real about the roller coaster that is entrepreneurship and life. Sure, some folks make running a business look like a walk in the park, but let's be honest, it's more like a wild ride through a theme park with a lot of unexpected twists and turns.
Join us, your co-hosts, Ashlan
and Tory,
as we spill the beans on our own real-life experiences and shine a spotlight on some amazing guests. From the highs of success stories to the lows of epic failures. And hey, we'll even throw in some cringe-worthy, laugh-out-loud, embarrassing moments for good measure.
So buckle up and tune in every Tuesday and Thursday for a dose of raw, unfiltered truth about what it's really like to chase your dreams and build a business.
Whether you're a seasoned entrepreneur or just dipping your toes into the startup world, we've got something for everyone. Even if it's just to make you think, wow, I'm glad I didn't do what they did.
Welcome back to Take the Leap. Today we are so excited to have Allison Cook on the podcast with us. Allison is the owner and creator of Allison Martin Studios. Spending the majority of her career in the legal field, taking on various administrative roles, Allison found herself constantly burned out. In need of a creative outlet, Allison created Allison Martin Studios, and it eventually evolved into a small business. In the midst of a global pandemic, Allison found candle making, and that is where the heart of Allison Martin Studios truly started. AMS creates hand-poured beeswax candles that burn clean, are scented with aromatherapy-grade essential oils, have crackling wood wicks, and can be enjoyed by anyone, including people with sensitivities to fragrances. Social and environmental responsibility and transparency are key in every aspect of Allison Martin Studios because people matter and this planet matters. When Allison is not creating and dreaming up new ideas, she is probably laughing at an inside joke with her sister, enjoying a cup of fair trade coffee, or talking about books with a friend. Welcome to the podcast, Allison.
Thank you.
And for those of you who are listening and not watching, Allison is right here in the room with me because I have known her since the beginning of time. Not really, but since I moved to Portland, basically.
Yeah.
And she's a really good friend of the family. She also babysits my son. So she basically is part of my family at this point. And that was the very long-winded way of saying, welcome. We're so happy to have you.
Thank you.
So welcome to the podcast. You have had quite a few years. It's been really fun to watch your journey. We worked together back, I'm not going to name names.
Yeah.
But we worked together back at a firm. Mm-hmm. And I vividly remember crying under Christina's desk and you witnessing that.
Yeah, I kind of stumbled upon it, to be honest.
Yeah, it was fun.
And then I wanted to join you, but I couldn't.
Good times. Good times we're had.
But hey, we're on the other side.
We are. So, we're on the other side of that. It was early in our career days.
Yeah.
And now you have your own business.
Yeah.
And you do a lot of other cool things. We're just really happy to talk about it.
I'm excited to talk about it because it's been a journey.
Yes. Yay.
Yeah.
Well, and this is your first time meeting Ashlan, but I feel like I've basically known both of you for around the same amount of time. I think Ashlan and I met you like a year in.
Mm-hmm. Well, and it's funny, Ashlan, I remember being on the phone with Tory and she mentioned meeting you at some marketing. I can't remember.
Maybe the meetup thing that we used to do, or maybe, or was it with the AMA? Maybe
I think it was AMA.
Oh, okay.
And so it's cool to finally meet you because I've heard about you for a long time. So now I get to see you.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah. And it's too bad you no longer live in Portland, but to be real, I think I see you now more that you're in Nevada.
Yeah.
So, you'll just join this little friend group and when you're in town, like maybe you guys can meet in person.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. That would be really fun.
Coming back in August. So I will let you know. It'll be awesome.
Yes, and the weather will be nice.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Well, today it's very nice. Ashlan, I don't mean to brag, but I mean, because you live in Vegas, so your weather is probably still better. But it's sunny outside right now. There's no rain. We're gonna go outside after this.
Yeah,
That's
It's gonna be
perfect.
great.
It's gonna be really nice. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, Allison, we start off our podcast asking the same question to all of our guests, and that is, what is your take the leap story? And by take the leap, we mean, what made you take the leap into starting your own business and venturing into entrepreneurship? And I know you're a very creative person, so you probably have a lot to say about that.
Yeah, I could ramble, so I'll try to be concise with it.
It's okay, we all ramble too.
I know, it's a thing. The short version of it is, honestly, my sister was the one who kind of was like, you need to just do this. The longer version of it was, I kind of, like we said earlier, spent most of my career in the legal field and kind of felt like, because that was where my experience was, that was the only place I could find work. But I've always, I've gone into jobs and thrown myself in like full speed and just kept reaching burnout. And I, over and over was like, there's got to be more to life than this. It's like, time is fleeting and I don't want to spend it where I feel like the majority of my life is in an office. Maybe it has windows, maybe it doesn't. And being a creative person, I can kind of, I tell people I'm a left brain and a right brain. Professionally, I can kind of lock into my left brain side and do great, but ultimately my right brain just needs to come out and be free. And so I kind of went back and forth between doing something for myself, going back into career in law. And then finally, I was actually in transition of getting back to Portland, and I was at my sister's, and I had been through 6 rounds of interviews for a job that I was overqualified in the legal field. And she kind of had a come to Jesus moment with me where she was just like, I don't think you should take the job if it's offered to you. She's like, I can't watch you take another job, throw yourself in to where it negatively impacts your mental health, your physical health, your anxiety goes up, you're stressed out all the time, and you stop taking care of yourself. And she is an accountant by trade, and so she's very comfortable with predictability and, just having every day kind of mapped out. And so for her to say that to me, of I think you need to pass on this job and like go in full throttle, I was like, okay, I think I need to listen to that, and all the advice is keep your career and then slowly build your business on the side. And then eventually when you can fully support yourself, then take the leap. Kind of did it the opposite way, And so, yeah, it's been scary and it's been a lot of work, but I get to be present in my life. I get to be intentional with people that I care about. Yes, I'm tired, but in a different way. And I want to spend a life where I get to be intentional and choose what I get to do with my time and, not be distracted when I'm out to coffee with a friend or out to dinner with someone. I want to experience life the way it was meant to be experienced. So
that's so amazing. That's honestly like a common thread between like all the people we've been talking to. It's just, I want to live life the way it's meant to be lived. And a lot of people, especially if you have a very creative brain, I feel like have a really hard time finding that in the corporate setting.
Yeah.
I wanted to touch on a point that you said too, because I think people just don't think about this. You get the Instagram version of what being an entrepreneur is like, right?
Yes.
I wake up at 6 a.m. and have my coffee and then go for a run and then that whole thing. And, I guess it works for some people, but it's not sustainable or realistic. And I love how you said that, some people will do it on the side first and then some people will jump in. And I feel like it doesn't matter where your journey starts. And it also doesn't even matter like how long it takes you. Like everybody's journey is different, right?
Yeah.
And so to talk about the struggles that happen between, like, I know that you've also done other things in addition to your business too, just because I know you as a friend.
Yeah.
And it's like, I think that's okay to talk about. And I think we just don't, like we're like, oh yeah, everything's great. Like we're making 6 figures, and like that whole thing. And I think as women and as entrepreneurs, it would just be so helpful if we could have those conversations of, you know what, my business fluctuates. And so this last year, I did great the first half. And then the last half, I did some other things to help with that. You encouraged my husband and I to start a side Etsy business too. So it's like, anyway, I'm rambling again, but
no, but
it's so true. Yeah.
And I find myself gravitating to entrepreneurs who are raw and honest and real about their experience, because we live in such a comparison culture and such a filtered, for lack of a better way of putting it. And I fall into that too, of like, oh man, these people have it together. Like, look at their perfect, room in their home where they get to make their products, and they've, but what we're not seeing is they might have had a kid screaming in the background, or their dog is barking in the yard, and they, are, like, there's so many things we're not seeing. And I tend to enjoy too the content creators who kind of poke at the facade of what we see, of like, oh yeah, I woke up like this, or stuff like that. Because in all honesty, there are more days where I am frustrated or in tears or disappointed because a product I made is maybe taking us, it's slow at taking off. Granted, social media is a challenge for me. And so it's just, I feel like we do a disservice to sugarcoat and make everything fit in a square frame that looks like perfection,
Such a good point.
So I feel like if more entrepreneurs can talk about the challenges that they have, but also encourage other people to not let them not do it. Yeah, I think that there'd be more resources and more of a community for entrepreneurs out there. So
I love that. That's such a good response. And that's so true. I think you've seen me cry more than you've seen me be happy about.
I mean,
things going on.
Same. Yeah.
And at the end of the day, we're all human, right? Like we all live life with emotions. We all have ups and downs in our personal life and our professional life. It doesn't make sense to talk about one without the other.
Yeah. Well, and that's just it too, like the personal life, because I think the New York Times just released an article about our society is built on kind of a business first mentality versus human first. And I didn't read the article, so I can't speak to it, but that's another thing that drew me to being an entrepreneur, is because being a human first is already hard enough, and like in our personal lives, you could get a sudden call of like you're having a family emergency, and some companies are really great at backing their people up and saying, take all the time you need. We care about your mental health. We care about you as a person. You need to be there for your family. And then you have other companies who are like, you get 3 days.
Yep. I've experienced that. Yeah. When my sister passed away, it was like, oh, okay, you're going to be off. By the way, you only get 3 days. And I'm like, cool. Could you just like not bring that up? You know, like
That's
at all.
messy.
Like you don't need to bring that up right away. But, you know, yeah, policy first, companies as opposed to humans first, especially in situations where like you're a good worker, like, you know what I mean? Like, and I know there's people like, well, we can't make exceptions. And it's just like, well, you just have to treat people like humans. Like it just, it's necessary.
Yeah, it is. And honestly, in the long run, I think people would be more apt to stay in a career path that they're in or stay at the companies that they're at. But I think because that's not what we're seeing, that's why we have more people opting to go into business for themselves. Absolutely. Because people have had it. I know that's a huge reason why I decided to do that too, because in the middle of the pandemic, I had this aha moment of I don't want to get to the end of my life and feel like somebody else had more control over what I did with 40 plus hours a week of my life. And kind of also it bleeds into the weekends because you're so exhausted and so mentally tapped out that the thought of going out and, you know, experiencing the city you live in or going out for a meal with friends feels like a chore because you're like, I don't have to be anywhere today and I don't want to go anywhere because I have spent all that I can at this job that probably undervalues you, is underpaying you, and doesn't see you as human, but as either data or a source of money flow.
Yeah, it's an input. You're an input, right? You're a cog in the wheel. It was interesting in the very beginning. You had said sometimes you're in an office with windows or one without. Like I sat in the center of a building where I didn't see outside unless I went on a walk for like lunch or like a walk for 15-minute breaks. Like I reflect back on that and I'm like, that is insane that I spent more than a year like never knowing what the weather was like outside.
Yeah. And especially depending on the time of year, it might be dark when you get to the office. And it might be dark when you leave. And
a lot.
And then people wonder why there's, you know,
so much depression. You
haven't seen the outside world.
And I have a friend, she's big on grounding, getting yourself outside, taking your shoes off and connecting with the earth because it actually resets your neurosystem.
That's such a good idea.
And she's constantly having to remind me, like, did you get outside? Did you spend some time breathing in the fresh air?
Such a good friend, though.
Oh my gosh, yes. She's amazing. And she also is an entrepreneur. So, but she's like, you need to reconnect with the earth and reset your nervous system. And it's just, I need to ground more. So
I could do that.
Yeah, I take multiple walks a day. I mean, it's nice because it's nice here. It rained for like 6 hours the other day, and it was giving me major Portland vibes. But I was like, I looked at my weather app, and I was like, okay, it's not going to be, 8 days in a row. It's going to just be a few hours.
Right.
But it's a little traumatic sometimes when it gets gray here. That I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. It doesn't, like
the sun is gone.
Always sun all the time, but
right.
What's so funny? Whereas the opposite here, when it's sunny here, that only lasts for a day.
And everybody gets out. So you're like, oh gosh, now I can like
go through everybody. Yeah.
It's like, I didn't even know that many people live in Portland until
the weather clears. Yeah.
Everybody lives here.
There's this great internet meme that's like, it's got two women in it, and it's like, oh look, like this girl is out in the sun again, and they're like, not that one, and it's like this girl who's just so white laying, and it looks like she's the sand. It's like the funniest one that I bring up like I used to bring up every summer.
Yeah. Oh my god.
That's how it feels.
It feels more.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
Yeah, this is the darkest I've ever been at this time of year, just because we have sun more down here.
Yeah.
I'm kind of jealous.
Just
You gotta come
face-
visit.
Yeah,
Come
I know.
visit.
It's true.
Yeah. Okay. I'm going to circle us back a little bit and just
Yes.
say, I know you're into your entrepreneurial journey. What piece of advice would you give yourself when you started, knowing what you do now?
That is such a good question. There's so many ways to go with that. I think the biggest thing for me would be take your time in areas that need time. Like for me, I'm a product-based business. So I spent a lot of time testing my product. But then the other side of that was fighting perfectionism. And and I think this is common for entrepreneurs, but you've got to accept that you're going to make mistakes along the way, and you're going to learn as you go. And so if when I started knowing what I know now, I think I would tell myself, take the time where you need it, but then don't let perfectionism hold you back. And this is something I'm still learning, honestly. And then with other things, take as much time as you need. Like, again, with my sister, I'm so grateful for her. She being an accountant and me being the dreamer and the creator, she's like, okay, so how much does it cost to make a candle? And I was like, oh, well, it's about this. And she's like,
no, but how much?
Okay.
Yeah.
She's like, no.
That's not an answer.
Exactly. She's like, that's not an answer. We've got a lot of work ahead of us. And so she sat me down and she's like, you need to figure out exactly how much drop of every bit of essential oil costs going into your candle. You need to know how much every single ounce of beeswax you use. And I was like, oh, reality check. And so that, I think, because that's where taking the time matters, because as entrepreneurs, it's also awkward to step back and be like, what is my value? Because we're not being told what our value is. We get to set that marker.
Mm-hmm.
And that can be really uncomfortable. I know it was for me when I first started, because it's like, well, it's kind of a mix of, I want people to like me and like my product. And because I'm putting my whole heart into it, it's hard to separate the emotion from it. I think I'm getting better at that. Still work in progress, but yeah, I think just taking the time where I need to, and then also just jumping off and being like, well, let's just do it, and then we'll course correct where I need to. So that's kind of my long-winded answer to that question.
That's a good answer, though.
It's really good, though. Yeah. We have a whole section on pricing and cost of goods sold in the course.
That's so important, because again, for creatives like me who are like up here in dreamland and like creating fun stuff, you need that grounding again. You need that to kind of really set yourself up for success so that you can become profitable and support the life that you want to build. So
exactly. And sometimes you can't even learn what it is that you need or want without going through those experiences.
Right. And it does make you smarter. You learn as you go. You make mistakes. Yeah. And then you just kind of, you figure it out from there. So yeah. And I even had a friend, this might be off topic, but I had a friend ask, like, well, what if this doesn't work and this doesn't work? And I said, well, then I figure something else out. And I think that's kind of the mentality you have to have, of just being willing to constantly learn and change and grow and evolve as a business owner, evolve if you're product based, you know, and sometimes what you think is going to work doesn't work. And sometimes what you think people are going to want isn't necessarily what they want. So you still stay true to your vision and your dream and what you want to build, but you also kind of find a compromise, I guess, of still staying true to yourself, but then providing something that people want or need. So
I love that. I love that response.
Thanks. That's great.
It's as somebody who's mostly only been in the service based business until, you know, you encouraged my husband and I to do an Etsy shop. I feel like I've learned so much from you on what it's like to run a product based business. Like I've never in my life, just exactly what you said. Like I even told you the other day, someone bought this item that I really would never buy. Like, I mean, I like it, but it's like, it's not something I would have thought of. I made it specifically for someone because they wanted it. And then we just, you know, kept it online because we figured other people would like it. People are buying it like crazy. And we're like, okay, we did not think that that was going to be a very popular thing. And so it's just like, you never know, I guess, at the end of the day until you start trying.
Yeah. When I worked at Fred Meyer Jewelers, some of the stuff that we would put in the catalogs, and I'd be like, that is a gaudy ring. Who buys that? And it would be like the best seller. I'm like, okay, clearly style preferences are not what, you know, what mine are. But no.
It
sometimes people have different styles that they like.
And it's so subjective.
Yeah.
Like we did a market during the winter, and because I use essential oils and everything's really clean, nothing synthetic, my candles are much more subtle in their scent. And that's kind of the common feedback, which is, for me, I'm highly sensitive to fragrances and synthetics and all that. And so that's why I make my candles the way I do. And I've actually gotten some people who've sought out my product for that very reason, which is really cool. But we were at a market and somebody came and picked up a candle, smelled it, and was like, oh, too strong. Picked up another one, too strong. Then
I do remember this.
Went through all of my candle scents saying that they were too strong. And so that experience really, truly taught me that, wow, like everything is so truly subjective. And it was a good kind of comical moment.
We just started laughing after she walked away.
It was mainly because I was in shock because, you know, like there's also some feedback. And again, everybody's sense of smell is so different. I've even had some people who are like, ooh, this is perfect. And then others are like, I can barely smell it, you know? And again, it's so funny. It's just so subjective. And being a perfectionist, I can easily get into my head of like, oh, like I need to continue working on my formulas and all. But that's when I need to like step back and realize that I can't make everybody happy.
There will always be haters.
There will always be people who it's too strong for them or it's not strong enough, you know? But really, I make a product that is meant for people who are highly sensitive to fragrances. And those are the people that matter. Because again, I can't make everybody happy.
Totally. Well, they still want something pretty in their house, right? Because I've looked at your candles. They are gorgeous and they are very beautiful. And, you know, but, you know, a lot of them, you know, if they do smell, like I've had many people who are known many people who are super sensitive to smell that, you know, and they just, it exits out a whole Target, you know, Ross, whatever market of candles from people. So exactly. It is a good niche.
Yeah. That's really cool. Thanks. I think it's a good niche too.
Well, and I always have at least one in my bathroom. So
it's true.
So I like it too. We always have them in our house. So I'm going to ask you the last question before we get into the hot seat topics that I warned you about. Don't worry, they're not that scary.
I like rapid fire.
So my last question for you before that is, what is your why? Why do you do what you do?
I think we kind of already touched on it a little bit, but my why is so that I can live more intentionally. And maybe I didn't say this before, but also live a slower pace. Like I love being able to get up in the morning and really enjoy a cup of coffee. And not every morning is that way. But on the mornings that I can, I just feel like I'm more focused and centered. I sleep better. I just feel like like today, just coming over here, I got in my car and was like, wow, it is such a beautiful day today. Mm-hmm. And before, I don't know that I would have ever. I don't know that I would have stopped and had that moment. Mm-hmm. And that's my why. Mm-hmm. I want to have those moments of being able to find little moments in my day to be grateful, and or to have random conversations with people. Because I was just talking to a friend this morning about how you can either attract negativity or you can attract positivity. Mm-hmm. And not that I'm always in a positive headspace. I mean, we're all human. Right. But sometimes you find yourself in random conversations. And like, I was dropping some orders off at the post office one day, and this older gentleman was coming in, and I didn't realize there was a door that he could just push a button and it would open for him. So I was holding the door open, and he was like, "Oh, thanks, I've got it," and he pointed to the door, and then we kind of walked out at the same time. And he said, I'm so glad we met. And he was like, I just know that there's still good people out there. Aww. And I just had this moment of like, yeah, and I don't know. He was just a random stranger that I'll never see again, but I will never forget him. Mm-hmm. And so like, those are those moments.
That's so beautiful.
Why. Yeah.
That's so beautiful.
Yeah.
And if you were still working for unnamed places, I don't know if you could have like truly had that moment or think that was magical, you just would have been like in and out and on to the next thing.
Yeah.
And I know that because like I felt the same way, the windowless rooms.
Yeah.
The windowless rooms.
Yes.
Really get to you.
Yeah. Because you just have nothing left to give. And so you're just like eyes at your feet, just walking about, and you're just missing life. And that reminds me, have you all seen Last Christmas? It has Emilia Clarke and Henry Goulding in it. Emma Thompson wrote it. It's based on George Michael.
I'm pretty sure I have.
Last Christmas.
I'm pretty sure I have. It's just been a while.
So Henry Goulding's character is constantly reminding Emilia Clarke's character to look up, because she's a hot mess. She's just in survival mode, just jumping from thing to thing to thing. And his character comes in and reminds her to look up. And she starts really, truly seeing London, where she lives, for the first time and experiencing it. And there's more to it than that. But it just, I don't know. There's just not having that weight on your back of just the day-to-day grind. I don't know.
That's so powerful. I love that.
And so I'm in my moments where I'm just in my head and like letting things bother me that will work themselves out, or, I try, I'm not great at it, but I try to remind myself, like, look up, look people in the eye, give someone a smile. Because I know how much it means when people do that for me, when I'm in that headspace and they just lock eyes with me and smile. And I'm like, oh, yeah, okay.
We're human.
Yeah.
Not robots.
No. Yeah. So
I love that. That was such a great response. So beautiful. I think that's why a lot of us do what we do.
Yeah.
So moving into the hot seat questions, obviously I've known you for many years now, so I know a lot of things about you. Probably good and bad. Mostly good, though.
I hope so.
And I know that you're a very creative person, not just because you create candles, but you've been an artist. You are an artist.
I am.
You're a writer.
Yeah.
You create products, and you have just this vivid imagination, and you're so good at a lot of things. What do you do? What are some tips that work for you when you feel yourself getting into a creative rut?
Ooh. Oh, man. Try to answer fast. Music, getting out of usually where I'm living, my house, apartment, whatever, fresh air. But mainly, I think just getting out and being social. And I actually, so I'm auntie to my best friend's kids, and oftentimes being around kids, and her kids are super creative. And so being around kids kind of helps get me out of my adult version of creativity, and kind of gets me back into the childlike mentality of creativity, because when you're a kid and you're creative,
nothing matters. You're just
there's no restraints. There's no, like, everything is possible. But yeah, I like painting, music oftentimes. Well, like sometimes when I'm listening to a song, I like it. I don't fully have it. Some people have it where if they hear a song or a musical note, it's associated with a color. I have a cousin who's like that. But there are some songs that I associate to color, and so I've been commissioned to do paintings for people, and some of the paintings I've done have been for people that I know really well, and I have associated certain colors to them because it's based on their personality and character. Yeah. And so, yeah. And I think as far as like the writing part of creativity, having the mental space to, like, during the pandemic, I started teaching myself a One Republic song on the piano. And
I love that.
I have since dropped that off, and I need to pick it back up. But I was at my cousin's house through the lockdown, and she and her husband have a covered patio, and so she brought her keyboard out there. So I was able to sit out there in the middle of the day listening to the birds and playing the piano. And all of a sudden, like, my creative writing side of my brain started to wake back up. And because I had the mental space, I was getting outside regularly. I was not in a windowless office. I had space to just kind of breathe. And so, yeah, I think all of those factors of being outside and being with people and experiencing life help get me out of that rut.
I love that. I love that answer, especially the being around kids. I love that. That's, I mean, I'm around kids a lot now, a kid in particular.
Yes.
And it's so true. We talk about it all the time about how he is just like, everything is just so magical to him.
Yeah.
Because he's never experienced it before.
Yeah.
And I love that. That's so great.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Okay.
Yeah.
Ashley, that's your turn.
Yes. I was going to comment, just finding those inspiring moments is really important, but pivot a little bit on this. What is your favorite book ever. Because I believe when I was cyber stalking you on the internet, you had mentioned you like reading. So yeah.
Yes.
And I know how hard of a question this is for you, and I didn't warn her, so I loved it. I love it so much.
I'm glad you didn't, because now you're getting my honest reaction. Oh my gosh. I honestly could not give you one title. I will say author-wise, I love Jane Austen because she studied people. I know she gets pigeonholed as like, oh, the romantic author. But when you really read her,
it was a society author. Yeah, like human
she,
dynamics. Yeah.
She studied people. You know, when you read her books, that those were people that she knew in her world, which I find a really fascinating kind of social study. Another author, Agatha Christie, love her. I would say, as a writer, a pivotal book for me was the Poisonwood Bible. Maybe because it was the time in my life that I read it, but I was like strictly a mystery reader at the time. And I remember going to the library and being like, oh, there are no books to read. And my mom's like, there's
a lot of books to read.
And I somehow got hold of a copy of the Poisonwood Bible, and I remember it was like, oh, this is so slow, and it's not really my thing. But I stuck with it, and I got to the end of it, and I was like, this is brilliant storytelling, because I don't know have either of you read it before?
I read it a long time ago, but I don't remember what it's about. Like, it's Barbara King's lover, and it's it's big. Yeah.
Yes, it is. It's a very thick one. But so it's about a Baptist minister who he uproots his wife and girls. And I think they moved to the Congo right before the Congo Civil War. And basically, it's just a short window of time, but it's told from the perspective of all of the women in the family.
Oh, wow.
And so you get such different details from all of them about the same events.
That's incredible.
And that's a book that has just stuck with me. I haven't read it in years, but
I'm pretty sure I have it because I really like her, but I haven't read that book yet, and I'm pretty sure it's on my very long list of to be read books.
That's understandable.
I've got like stacks that don't fit on the shelf.
I love it.
That's awesome.
But yeah, I feel like I'm gonna come up with a title though that is like my all-time favorite after we're done recording.
That's okay.
Yeah, it's gonna happen.
You can just send it to us. We can put it in show notes. Yeah.
Yes.
I knew it'd be hard for you to pick, and I was so excited for that question when I saw it.
Yeah, it's just there's so many good ones.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay, taking like a totally different turn here. And Ashlan, I ask this question to everybody. It's my standard question now. What is the best and or worst piece of advice you've ever received throughout your career? Oh my gosh. I just love the answers that we get.
Or worst.
Or both. Depending on where you want to go with this. I like to give people options.
I really want to like have a really funny story. And clearly I didn't get good enough advice because I jumped ship on the legal career. So, you know.
I think there's nothing wrong with that. Maybe that was
I was going to say, maybe it's advice for people who want to go into the legal career. Is it sunshine and roses? Because I thought corporate career was going to be great. And dice on that. No dice on that one.
Well, because I think we see the movies, typically rom-coms, where like the main character has this kind of glamorous corporate job, and she's killing it, and yet she has time and energy to go get drinks with friends after work, and then go do this and that, and then she's always looking refreshed and just she's thriving, and
that was not my experience.
That's not real. And And so I think in my 20s, I think when I landed at the firm we were at, that's kind of what I had in my head. And for a time, that's what it felt like. Because for the first time, I wasn't a barista. So I was getting a decent paycheck. And I actually had vacation days I could take. Um, and, but after a while, the honeymoon phase definitely wore off. And it was just kind of like, oh no, this is the grind. And I think for some people, they are hardwired for that kind of world, and they can thrive, and they like the adrenaline rush of it, and I did too for a time. But life kind of shifted rapidly for me, and I realized that doesn't hold any water with me anymore. It doesn't hold any weight. So, yeah, I think if I could give any advice to anybody, wanting to go into the corporate world, or at least work in tangent with the corporate world, just know yourself and know what your boundaries are and your limitations, and kind of stick to as best you can, because you will get pushed into giving of yourself more than maybe you have it in you to give. But yeah, just know yourself and know where your boundary is.
Yeah.
I love that. So important.
Yeah.
So important.
Yeah.
I wish my younger self knew that too.
Yes.
I was going to say, you start operationalizing it later, right? But it never happens in that first job.
No.
No. And I would be curious I haven't talked to a lot of men about this, but I would be curious if men have an easier time drawing that boundary. I feel like they do. Just because here's some career advice. My mom, with the best of intentions, told me early on, like I'm talking high school, so I wasn't even like close to getting into a career at this point. She was like, make yourself so valuable to them that if layoffs come down the pipe, they have no option but to keep you. And so I was like, okay, I need to constantly be available to get stuff done. I need to work super hard so that they see my value and my worth, so that I don't run the risk of losing my job. And that's been my biggest fear in my career, is getting fired. And I haven't come close to that, thank goodness. I know that that's not the case for a lot of people. But I also think it was detrimental to me, because I didn't know how to speak up for myself in my career, and negotiate salary, and so it was just kind of like, oh, you're willing to pay me for my work? Thank you. Like, that's how I kind of felt like I was programmed, is to just shut up, be quiet, be grateful for what you get, and take it and don't complain. And I think that was so detrimental. And I think that's also why I went into burnout. And I even saw, like, when you sit in for your review, if you're lucky enough to get a raise, I saw that as a reward for the hard work that I had done. And it wasn't until years into my career that a friend of mine was like, no, actually, they're paying you more for the work that you will be doing for them. And I literally stopped and was like, that's what a raise is? And she's like, yeah, it's not for work that you've done, because you're working at the value that they have.
Yeah, because they already paid you that. They don't go backtracking for you.
Right. And I was like, oh my gosh, how am I just now learning this in my early 30s? and I've been working since I was a teenager. So I'm like, so there's the career advice I had of just like, make it so they won't fire you.
Yeah.
Yep. Oh,
And coming from somebody who was laid off, I had that same mentality. And even after that, I had that same mentality. I was always available. I tried to make myself as valuable as I could. And then I was still laid off when budget cuts came around, even though after I left, the person who was left struggled because they didn't have enough people. And, and I'm sure it was fine. Like I am replaceable. That's when I realized how replaceable I was.
Yeah.
But, I went in with that mentality as well in the corporate world. And the truth is, it doesn't matter how hard you try. We're all replaceable.
Yeah.
In that system.
And that actually makes me think too, on the other side of that advice from my mom, years later, she gave me good advice. And it was, don't put your worth in your career, in your job. And at the time I was like, oh, I know where my worth is. I know where my value is. But it wasn't until later that I realized, oh, yeah, she was right.
Yeah.
I had put all of my worth in my career and being able to tell people like, this is my job title. And that was a huge kind of wake up call for me of, that I had put all of my value in my career. And when I stepped away from that, I was like, I have no value in this world. And that's not good. So anyway, there's the two sides of that coin on parental advice for your career. But so I think that's the best thing I could have ever heard, because I think that also played into me finally hearing what my sister was saying and me saying, I'm done playing the game of trying to chase the next best thing and hope that they like me enough to give me a job and then tell me, this is what we think you're worth. And so don't put your value as a human being in what you're doing as a job. It's a vocation. It's not a life.
Yeah. So true. All of us need that. A lot of us need that reminder.
Yeah.
That's a good answer.
Yeah.
Okay, Ashlan.
We have a more fun question. How did you land on candle making, and what is your favorite part of the process or the creative process for it?
So fun. So I kind of fell into candle making. I was looking for a creative outlet when I was trapped at home during the pandemic. And I was living in a part of the country where glass was not recycled, and I had all these empty jars. And I was like, oh, these would make really nice like tea light votives or whatever. And then I don't remember where the idea came from, but I just remember thinking, oh, I could turn these into candles. So I started researching, like losing sleep because I was up till 3 a.m. researching. And then it was a random conversation with my friend Jana, who I mentioned earlier. And I hadn't decided on what kind of wax to use. And she said, oh, well, did you know that beeswax is a natural air purifier? And I said, no, I didn't. And I struggle with allergies, and she's like, yeah. And it helps clean the air of pollutants, any sort of pollen or, pet dander or whatever. And I was like, that's my wax. So from the time I launched my first set of candles, my scents, to the time that I had that idea, it was like a whole year. I actually went back and found the random journal I'd started writing all of my notes and research in.
Oh my gosh, that's so exciting.
Yeah, and it was kind of a full circle moment. So it was just, this was supposed to be a random side hustle. It wasn't supposed to turn into a business. It was mainly just because I loved candles. I couldn't buy store-bought candles because of synthetic fragrances and the toxic waxes that they use. Fun fact, paraffin wax, toxic. So if you go to like a Target or something and you see something that says soy blend or whatnot, they only have to put 5% of soy in that wax to be considered a soy blend. So the reality is it's 95% or more of paraffin wax because it's cheap. So look for 100% of anything, beeswax, soy, and we're pretty good on that.
That's good to know. I did not know that.
Yeah.
That makes sense why like the jars are so like, I'm like, why is this jar that's so big $7 and this jar that's so little? Provided the pretty factor, but it's probably the ingredients.
Yeah, and I get pulled into those pretty jars too. And then I got to smell all the smells, part of it to get ideas. And then I walk away with this headache and I'm like, I really shouldn't have done that. Like, I already know I can't do the synthetic fragrances, but you just can't help it because it's packaged so beautifully. So I stumbled into it. But what I really love about the process of candle making is it's just satisfying to create something that people can enjoy. It's a lot of work. And some days I have to admit, I don't enjoy it as much as other days, mainly because I have either not given myself enough time to really truly give to it, which is my own fault. But I do have to recognize that it calms me. And I do love that. And like, I'll put on podcasts and just kind of catch up on, I love podcasts that are kind of interview style because I feel like you get kind of a cool look into how people operate in their life and you can kind of glean some wisdom from people and their life experience. But yeah, I feel like when I'm making candles, it's kind of a way for me to slow down. And you can't, at least working with beeswax, because it's a really finicky wax, you can't rush it. So
it forces you.
Yeah, it forces you, and it's kind of I don't want to like over romanticize it, but it's a little bit of a dance, and I'm constantly learning new things about how beeswax functions and works, and it's I don't know, and it comes from the earth, which is just cool. I don't know how else to describe it, and it's so versatile, and I don't know, like I honestly could go off on a tangent. I nerd out about this. I had a customer reach out to me with questions, and she's like, sorry, I'm pestering you with so many questions. And I said, no, like, I love talking about this stuff. So I think I just enjoy the process, and then just being able to provide something that just makes people happy, and getting pictures of people using my candles and getting feedback of, I really love this scent, and it kind of helps them at the end of their work day to kind of just reset and come down from the stress and enjoy their evening.
I love that. I love that so much. I love, you have like a time lapse video. I think it's on your Instagram. I love watching that. It's so fun.
I need to do more.
Yeah, those are so fun.
I love watching videos like that. I need to make more, just because I know that people have asked me actually.
More.
Yeah.
I love that. That's so cool. Okay, so this is the last hot seat question, and honestly, you've covered this quite a bit, but we'll still ask it just to see if we get a different answer.
Okay.
What is your definition of success and happiness?
My definition of success and happiness is, first thing I think of is Thanksgiving with my mom's family.
Aww.
And to me, that is, I wish that everybody could have a family like the Hans. We're loud. We laugh a lot. We get emotional when we are sharing memories, or we've had several bottles of wine between all of us. We have a family joke. It started with my mom and her sisters of, if you start crying as you're, saying your goodbyes, oh, gotta get the sunglasses out, And so I think success is being able to put your head on your pillow at the end of the day and be content with your day, and going into the next day being content. It's not every day. It's a practice. And then happiness is being with the people that support you, love you, are willing to have tough conversations when needed, but ultimately just want to celebrate and be present with you.
That's such a beautiful answer. I love that. I love that so much. Well, that was the last of our questions. We're really happy that you were on the podcast today. We had such a good conversation. Before we wrap up, is there anything you want to plug? Anything you want to tell our audience?
Yeah, I mean, go check out my candles. You can find them at Allison Martin Studios on Etsy's website. I'm on Instagram and TikTok at Allison Martin Studios. And yeah, if you love candles and you want a candle you can burn and not have to worry about filling your home with toxins, check them out.
And I'm a customer, and I just want you to know that they are amazing. Truly amazing.
Well, thank you.
And from now on, I mean, seriously, they're the only candles I buy. Unless I'm gifted other candles, then that's it. But I have not bought another candle of yours.
I know.
And you're at my house almost every day. So
yeah, so I would notice.
Exactly. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. I know.
Yes. Thank you so much, Allison. I know, big through the computer hug. But yeah, Thank you so much for being on with us today.
Yeah, thank you for having me. And hopefully we get to meet. We've met each other, but hopefully we get to see each other in person.
100%.
Yes.
All right.
Fun.
Cool.
All right. Until next time.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Take the Leap podcast. We hope you found useful takeaways you can apply to your entrepreneurial journey. Subscribe so you don't miss future episodes, and keep in touch and follow us on Instagram. If you have business questions, shoot us a direct message or leave us a comment. We'll try to cover it in an upcoming episode. And visit our website, taketheleap-today.com, for more resources like our online course that accompanies this podcast.